Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is the importance of professional inspections. When investing in a fix and flip property, a professional inspection is crucial before closing the deal. While it may seem unnecessary if you're planning major renovations, skipping this step can lead to costly surprises down the road. Here are 3 reasons why a professional inspection is important. Number 1, uncover hidden issues. An inspection can reveal structural damage, faulty wiring, plumbing issues, mold, or pests, problems that might not be visible during a walkthrough. Number 2, accurate budgeting. Knowing the full scope of repairs needed allows you to create a more precise renovation budget, avoiding unexpected costs that could eat into your profits. Number 3, negotiation power. If the inspection reveals significant issues, you may be able to negotiate a lower purchase price or ask the seller to fix certain problems before the closing. So, a thorough inspection not only protects your investment, but also gives you the confidence to proceed knowing exactly what you're taking on. It's a small cost compared to the potential savings and peace of mind it provides. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us George McCleary. George is a real estate investor and social media personality who gained viral fame by exposing how effortlessly a house can be stolen and how squatters and title thieves exploit the system to steal from homeowners with impunity. His viral video, I Stole a House, amassed tens of millions of views across all social platforms and resulted in appearances on Dr. Phil, News Nation, as well as features in news outlets worldwide, including Bigger Pockets, Fox News, Joe Rogan, and now the RAIN podcast. He is based in Portland, Oregon, where he is the CEO of Defender Networks, a company dedicated to protecting their users from squatters, title fraud, and other real estate scams. I am so excited to have him on the show. So welcome, George McCleary.
What's up, Jen? Oh, cheering thousands. Love it.
Thousands. You are famous with that viral video. And by the way, I showed my husband Vance right before we hit record, and he just got angry. So I'm going to put the link to this viral video in the show notes. Go check it out. Anyway, I am so excited to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about you. Give us some background.
Well, Jen, I'm a real estate investor, hungry for growth, just like your listeners. But I've been in the game for a while. I've been in the game for about 20 years now as a landlord, a broker, a developer. And I'm kind of at the stage now where I'm doing mainly development and flips and things like that. And I took a little bit of a left turn last, I guess it was January, when I uploaded that video, and my life kind of changed. It inspired anger, just like it did to your husband and a lot of people. And a lot of just people were just incredulous that this could happen, that this actually was a thing. And a ton of people started contacting me saying, hey, this happened to me and here's what happened. And I started noticing a pattern. I said, wow, this is a really underserved market of people that are having really terrible things happen to them. And this is my community. This is real estate investors primarily. And I just recognized there was an opportunity to help these people. And so ever since then, I've been on a mission to spread the word about squatters and title fraud and how you can protect yourself.
And you have definitely spread the word. So give a little breakdown of this 90-second video. It just, why it makes us so angry. So what did you do in this video?
So I woke up, it was Super Bowl Sunday, and I woke up in Portland like I do every morning, and I was just fed up. A lot of the policies around here have really begat some really just negative consequences. And I've had really like low level squatters. I walk into one of my projects and there's like an addict asleep on the ground. I say, hey man, you got to leave. And eventually he does. Usually it doesn't lead to much conflict. But I have had several colleagues that have had squatters of the variety that I describe in the video, where they basically have their game tight. And it made me realize, hey, the game has changed, but the laws haven't changed. And
right.
People are being taken advantage of. So I made the video basically outline the steps that these people are doing to break into these houses and squat and get away with it. So I took on the role as the squatter. I said, this is how I stole a house. So it was very tongue in cheek. And there was a lot of clues that I was, a real estate investor, developer. But what happened was it got reposted. Well, first it got taken down, but then it got reposted among a lot of different accounts. And so it never linked back to me. So nobody could see that, hey, this guy's a real estate investor. He's not serious about stealing the house. So everybody thought I actually did it. And that's what led to everything just really exploding.
I think my favorite part of the video is you saying, this is my house now. And oh my goodness. And then because you said, because I'm a drug dealer, that I didn't have to clean the place.
I do a lot of drugs. Yeah, the place is destroyed because I do a lot of drugs and the place looks every bit of it. That was kind of one of those things like tipping off, like who says that, right?
And aerating the walls.
Taking a hammer to the walls. But the reality is that's really what they do. They will completely trash the place just, for the heck of it.
Well, I have to share. So back in my first season, we're in the 5th season now, my neighbor and very dear friend, Stephanie Anson, I played this video for her, that your I Stole a House viral video. And that's literally exactly what happened to her. And she had purchased a house, and at closing, she got the keys, she goes over to the house, and there's still people in the house. Go back and find this video. I mean, the podcast recording, it's from a while ago, but she literally had to get an attorney and go through all these steps. And at the very end, exactly what you said, she offered her cash for keys, which is a common phrase that people deal with squatters. And I think she gave $5,000 and then they got out of the house, but they destroyed the house. There was a dog in there with... it was a Chihuahua that never left the house, and the nails of the Chihuahua like growing back into their skin. It was awful, horrible situation. And
that's terrible.
The lease was and this is what was mind blowing to me. And I want you to break this down for me. The lease that those people showed, and this was in Durham, North Carolina, showed the police in Durham. It was a handwritten lease, by the way. In your video, at least you downloaded one that looked legit. And in there, it said all the things that the landlord was to pay. And one of the items was food, that the landlord was supposed to be supplying food to the tenants, which, come on, police officers, you've got to know that that's not real. So if
ever there was a sign.
Oh my goodness. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking because this is all about you today, but that's
just wild.
It is wild.
That's just so crazy.
So
food is so I've heard, Jen, literally everything. You can imagine the things after talking with all these property owners, because I would see an article about like someone who had a squatter like 6 months ago, and I would track them down and call them up and say like, yo, how'd this turn out? Because the news story is, oh my gosh, this person has a squatter and bad things are happening. But there's never like a follow-up story like, oh yeah, everything worked out and they got him out in a few months, or no, he's still there. There's usually just one article about it. So I'd track him down and say, hey, so what'd you do? What happened? And that's really where the real meat of the story was. That's where I found out about things like, like dogs who are there, or, the little details like a lease that says that you need to bring me a pallet of Twinkies every 12 days or something. Like that's where I found out about like, well, actually, we went a little, off book on this one. Can I speak off the record? And I'm like, yeah, you can. We're just friends here. And that's where I found out about the alternative methods and that both the squatters and the homeowners were using to go up against each other.
It is crazy. So we've had 3 squatters, and the most recent one, it was in a property that we were flipping, and the gentleman was sleeping on the front porch. And this was like towards end of COVID, and COVID, we had so much stuff stolen out of some of our properties. And so this gentleman, he was sleeping on the front porch, and nothing was getting stolen out of the house. So I actually let him stay there for a little while the guys were working. I gave him the code to the porta-john. And I would take him coffee on occasion. But one morning I'm like, all right, I brought him a nice hot meal. And I said, all right, we are starting to do some major, we're going to have people in and out of here. And I do need you to vacate. And he cleaned up his area afterwards. So that was a very positive situation. And I want to know, I feel like I'm hearing more and more about it. I'm real big into the Airbnb stuff, that people are claiming squatters' rights while they are in short-term rentals that are like midterm rentals. And if they're there more than 30 days, they can claim, tenant laws, all this stuff. But
Right.
why?
Right.
My question to you, I'm sorry, I'm like going in circles here. Why
You're
is
good.
squatting becoming so prevalent in this day and age? I mean, this is crazy to me.
It is crazy. And the short answer, Jen, is that it is a low risk, high reward crime. And you don't often pay the price for committing the crime. There's very few crimes out there that are like that, where if you steal something, there's basically no repercussions. And so what happens when you have a situation like that is it proliferates. People start to catch on, and everybody uses the internet, including criminals, and they say, gee, not only am I not going to get caught for this, but let's see, what's the average rent around here? Like $3,000 a month. Boy, if I could stick around for a year, that's about as much as I make in a year. That doesn't sound so bad. I think I can do that, especially if I'm not held accountable. So that's the short answer. And the longer answer is about like outdated laws, law enforcement being disempowered, and generally landlord-tenant law favoring tenants to an extent in every single state. You might be in a landlord-friendly state, but you're going to be in a situation where a law enforcement officer is going to have to take the word of the homeowner versus the squatter or the tenant. And he's going to have to make a judgment call. And he's not going to risk his livelihood hauling somebody out of what might very well be their house in order to appease a homeowner who says, like, hey, this guy shouldn't be here. And he's going to look inside the house. He's going to look at the guy and think, well, gee, as they say, possession is 9/10 of the law. So the shirt on your back is presumed to be your own unless somebody can prove otherwise. Same with a house. So if you're occupying the house and a cop sees you're there, there's furniture, you're waving to the neighbors as you mow the lawn, he's going to think, gee, maybe this guy does have the right to be here. And that's what happens. That's when the cop turns to the owner, says, yo, you guys are going to have to go figure this out, because I can't arrest this guy based on these circumstances. Yes, this lease looks like, could be questionable. Yes, it says that you need to bring him food. I'm not going to be able to forget that. That's just wild. But I can't handcuff this guy and take him away. You're gonna have to figure it out.
So
and that's what happens.
What do they have to establish for the police not to kick them out? That's what's just, if someone's like, if the homeowner is holding my friend Stephanie, she literally just came from the closing and had the closing papers in her hand. And then he went in and then they presented this lease. But what else can they do to establish them, to make them look like they live there? I know you did mention one thing in your viral video about getting the electricity, opening electricity.
Utilities.
Yeah, utilities. Thank you. So what do they do, and how? Anyway, I'm just getting angry.
Right. It's generally, Jen, it's the more time that they're in there, the more credibility they establish. So they've got utilities in their name, they've got the lease, then they're recognized by neighbors. Their car is recognized. They've got pets, with beds and furniture. Everything looks established. You peek into the house, and it just looks like somebody lives there. Whereas if the cop rolls up, you got an alarm blaring in the background and an empty house and a guy just standing there, looking, all shifty eyed, the cop is going to be like, okay, clearly like this guy just like broke in. And if you've got an owner who has made like a very simple alarm system, in my Squatter Defender course, I offer 50% off plus a free camera to anybody who buys the system. And that will establish to law enforcement, you can say, hey, look at this video. I've personally texted and emailed videos of crimes being perpetrated on my properties to law enforcement, and they take a look and they say, okay, yeah, okay, that's the guy. All right, well then, and we'll take him away now. But without that, you're just up to the discretion of the police officer.
Oh my goodness. So what are some protections that I know you said the video, and I see on Facebook people saying, I have a squatter and this and that. And then people are like, you just go and change the locks. You just do these. And the people give these suggestions, but I know they probably aren't great suggestions. So you, as the expert in this matter, what are some things that property owners can do to protect themselves from squatters?
So the first one and the most obvious really is the alarm system. If you don't know who's coming in and out of your property, then you're just at a really high risk for having a squatter. And the alarm system doesn't need to be big and expensive. People have this perception that's going to cost like several thousand. You got to bring a guy out and everything. No, this is a standalone unit. You can plug it in the wall yourself. You don't even have to subscribe to the police monitoring. I think that's an extra $25 a month. All you need to get is just notifications on your phone that somebody has entered in your house. And that's just the base station with the siren, so that, he comes in and alarm goes off and he thinks to himself, okay, maybe I should think twice about this place because someone's going to know about it. And just get a notification on your phone, like someone's in your property. Pull up your camera. Oh, okay. It's the plumber. Everything's okay. Oh, wait, I don't recognize this guy. We have a problem here. That is by far the easiest part. And in the Squatter Defender course, I go over all the other little baseline things you can do, but they're all minor in comparison to just that one thing. And all in, like, the cost ends up being like, I don't know, like $100 or something. And you can move it from property to property if you have a rental portfolio. So take it from one vacant property to the next. That's the low hanging fruit.
Okay. So like getting the electric bill, is there any protections that you can do with the city or wherever your property is located to put a block on people like getting the electric bill put in their name?
There's nothing uniform that I've noticed
Okay.
because they're all independent agencies. And so like in a lot of places you call up and say like, hey, put the electric in my name, and boom, it's transferred because, you're supposedly going to be paying for it, right? So, pull it out of one guy's name and into the other, no big deal. And then I've heard in other places that they won't do that unless a person relinquishes it, or you basically, but then you say like, all right, well, we can't reach the guy. Am I just never going to pay the electric bill? And so then they're like, okay, well, maybe you just prove us and send us a piece of mail, something like that. So there's no uniform system for that. But generally, if you call up a company and say, I want to pay for this thing, they're going to let you do it.
That is mind-blowing. So I mentioned that Facebook group where they said, oh, you just wait till they leave and then go change the locks. Or I heard one time that people would just move in with the squatters and make their life miserable. I've heard people blasting music. I'm sure you have heard some pretty crazy methods. So what are some that you have heard of people trying to get rid of squatters?
So I have some favorites, and I have a whole section in the Squatter Defender course all about what I call the unconventional methods. And a few of like the highlights are snakes are probably my favorite. Unloading a bunch of snakes into the property. Yes, I'm not sure if the common man can get access to large quantities of snakes, but if you can.
Gosh.
That's an option. And so I've always put like a big like disclaimer on all these saying like, I can't advise you to do any of these things, but they actually did work in this situation. But you got to be really careful because there are situations where the squatter has been like hurt or sometimes unalived by a person putting like a booby trap.
Did you say unalived?
Yeah, I don't want to get you demonetized. That's the K word. That's the age we live in. So, yeah, the squatter will be unalived, pew pew, by the homeowner. And then also, there's been instances where the squatter has unalived the homeowner. It's really gotten extreme, and so that's why I say, hey, be really careful when you're dealing with this population, because sometimes it's white collar folks who've just figured out a way to scam the system and they just have no morals, so they just go ahead and do it. But a lot of times, it's addicts, career criminals, people that are living on the fringes of society. They got nothing to lose, Jen. They can and will do these things. So snakes, bear trap, mice was another one. So none of these are, again, things that I actually recommend, but one of them I actually do recommend that you explore. Every situation is different, Jen. And so you got to basically examine the situation kind of for what it is, like who your squatter is, what your local laws are, and what your options are. And that's why on the Squatter Defender course, I offer a consultation as well to kind of help people navigate this. But you mentioned earlier, Jen, moving in with the squatter. That is a service that certain parties offer nationwide. And yes, it's true. It's called squatting on the squatter. And that's sort of the nickname that it's been given. And it actually is a very effective method.
Wow.
Yeah. You basically, so you can do it yourself, but again, danger, Will Robinson. If you just walk through the door and say like, okay, yeah, I'm your new roommate, what's up? There could be a possibility that a confrontation could occur, and maybe you don't want that. You probably don't want that. So what do? You hire one of these, we'll just call them like a squatting on the squatter contractor, and they're experienced. These are, dudes who are ready for such a situation, and they're not going to have any sort of violent altercation with them, or certainly not initiate it. They're just going to be really, really bad roommates. They're going to mount a bunch of cameras. They're going to go through all their stuff, eat all the food, maybe the food that was bought for them by the landlord. We're just going to keep coming back to that. And they will just basically make their life miserable. And most of the time, the squatter will figure, hey, the jig is up. I've got to get out of here because this is no longer like a safe, peaceful place to live.
So my first approach would be to humanize them and have a conversation with them. That wasn't the case with my friend Stephanie. So part of your video at the very end, you said you did a breakdown of what you would make by stealing a house. And a very common process is cash for keys. So is that a good technique, or what are your thoughts on that method? And explain what cash for keys is, by the way.
Oh, sure. So cash for keys is basically giving money to the squatter in exchange for them getting the heck out of there. And this is a method that you use in all types of situations. If you've got a non-paying tenant who's stringing you along, if you've got a squatter, if you've got basically anybody who's, doing something you don't want them to do and that you want them to stop, but you don't have the legal mechanism to get them out anytime soon, you give them some money and they give you the keys to the place. Cash for keys. So do I like cash for keys? Yes and no. I like it because I am a very big proponent of solving a problem quickly.
Yes.
In real estate, there's nothing more valuable than time.
Yep.
And especially once you start, moving up in the game, your time becomes a whole lot more valuable, and you have to make some decisions where you've got to pay out in situations you really don't feel like it. But you have to, for the sake of just moving forward. But this situation, I really don't love cash for keys because it leads to further, perpetuates the squatter scam. It rewards them for committing a crime. If you've got a non-paying tenant because, like, hey, life is hard, they lost their job, a family member died, whatever, they're just in financial dire straits, and that's the only reason. It's either that or the street. Man, here's $2,000. Will you just get the heck out of here so you can just, have some money to live off so that, my problem will go away. Your problem's not going to go away, but this will help. What do you say? That's a little different than the squatter scam, because you give money to them, they're just going to do it over and over and over again. But with that said, have I given cash for keys? Yeah, possibly many times. And there's been plenty of times where people I know have done that exact thing. It really is, it's how long you expect them to be there, how long it's going to take. Because if you're caught up in the court system, if you take them to court, you can either go through eviction or ejectment, and different municipalities have different rules, different lengths of time. In a lot of places, like in Portland, Seattle, it could take like a year. It could take longer, and there's continuances. They've got free government help to just keep string things along. If you can get them out for $5,000 rather than paying your lawyer like $35,000 over the course of 12 months, you got to make that tough decision sometimes.
Gosh, that just irks me to no end.
Yeah.
And listeners, do not think that this can't happen to you, because we are very landlord friendly here in North Carolina, and this happened right here in our neighborhood. So please, I think so I'm going to kind of jump to the end of the podcast here. You sell a course, and it's called, is it Defender? What is the name of your company?
Squatter Defender. So Defender Networks is the name of the company, but Squatter Defender is the course I offer about how to squatter prevention, detection, and ejection. And then Title Fraud Defender is the software to prevent against title fraud.
And I want to get to title fraud in a second here, but listeners, do not wait until you have a problem squatter in your property, because it's not if it happens, it's when it happens. We've had 3. And the third guy, by the way, was living under the house and using the insulation as bedding. Can you imagine sleeping on fiberglass? I'm like, ugh, it just hurts my skin. But we just put a lock on the door when he was gone. So we didn't lock him in there. This is I was so excited to get George on the show today, because this is something, like I said, it's not if it happens, it's when it happens. And to be prepared for it, I think having this tool in your tool belt is so important. So how do the listeners find your course?
So squatterdefender.com is where you'll find the course, and titlefrauddefender.com is where you will find the title fraud monitoring software.
Very good. And
and I should
it comes with a camera or something, you said.
So it doesn't come with a camera, but if you buy the course, then you get a coupon code for Simply Safe. So I'm not affiliated with them. I don't work for them, but I give you a 50% off coupon, and that gets you a free camera. And then in addition to that, Jen, your listeners with the promo code RAIN in either the Title Fraud Defender or Squatter Defender get a 20% off coupon, and that's REIGN.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll have all this in the show notes. And it's just good as we're going through these stories to know that there is a solution for this. So I want to get a little bit into the title or the deed fraud. And I sent you an article. We aren't going to get too deep into it, but I sent you an article right before this. I'm in Wake County, and this is a property. It's a $4 million property, 8,300 square foot home. And something happened where the homeowner was trying to do something through their HOA, and the HOA questioned them because their name, the homeowner, was no longer on the deed. And it is crazy how this happened. So it's saying because of the laws in North Carolina, there's really nothing they can do. And it was going to be approximately $8,000 to file a civil suit against this woman who, anyway, I'm going to because you read it, you explained this a lot better, but how can people protect themselves from this? Or just explain the situation, because you have a better grasp on this.
So I actually loved that article that you sent to me, Jen, because I read it, and a lot of articles about title fraud and deed fraud kind of don't get into the nitty gritty of exactly what happened, why it happened, and what the statement from the county was. It was actually very good reporting. It gave the full statement from the county about what happened, what went wrong. But essentially it boils down to this, Jen. It's not that hard to forge a deed. It's not like printing $100 bill or, forging a driver's license. It's a piece of paper with a rubber stamp on it. And what they even said in the article is they're not verifying it.
The deed is what proves that you are the homeowner. I just want to make sure the listeners are very aware of this. And this random chick went and was able to, she thought it was a house that was being foreclosed upon, and then was able to submit paperwork. So continue. I just wanted to clarify it for the listeners.
Supposedly. I am not sure if I completely buy that excuse. Yeah. So she thought it was being foreclosed, and it's just but over what? I mean, right. Yeah. And that's not how you buy a foreclosure in the first place. Correct. So just like you're saying, Jen, The deed is what passes title from one person or one entity to the next. So that system is pretty much the same nationwide. It's a piece of paper that has a grantor and a grantee, the person selling the house and the person buying it, and it gets taken to the county. And as long as it has a notary signature on it saying, yeah, I saw these people, they signed the document, they made the deal, the recorder for the county, they have to record it. It's not like they call up the notary and say like, hey, did this actually happen? No, it's just a stamp.
So there's
That's
no
it.
verification. Ugh.
There is not. And there are systems. So Title Fraud Defender, what we do is the bad thing that can happen, like having your title changed, that's a bad thing for sure. And just like it said in the article, you have to have basically a lawsuit to change it back. And we let you know how to do that and everything if your title ever gets stolen with Title Fraud Defender. But what the bad thing that can happen with title fraud is having your equity stolen. That is the big deal, because what happens more often than not, it's not the person stealing the title in their name. That's kind of a dumb criminal thing to do, is to just retitle a property into your name. Because
this woman did.
Which this woman did. What the real crime is and how equity is being stolen is someone will go get somebody's information. It's on the dark web. It's name, social security number, address, and they'll get a fake ID being them. And that is who they transfer title into. And then they go to the county recorder's office. They steal the house by filing the fraudulent deed. And then they call up their local wholesaler or their local real estate agent and say, hey, I've got this house. I'll sell it to you for this wham bam price. And as long as there's not a whole lot of liens on the property, or like a mortgage with a whole lot of with a huge balance on it, really any equity in the house above that which they owe to the bank, that's what gets stolen. And so they can open a bank account because they've got an ID, they've got a social security number. The title says, oh, wow, looks like you just bought this 3 weeks ago. Yeah, sure did. Now I'm selling it for a profit. Isn't that something? And so then the money gets wired. Everything's fine. And the owner never knows about it. Unless you have Title Fraud Defender and we say, hey, ding, 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 did you transfer this title? And Jen says, no, I certainly did not. So then at that point, you file an affidavit, you call the title company, you make sure that nobody can steal your equity, because that is not covered by title insurance. That's the big one.
Wow. So does this do more than just say title insurance when you are purchasing a property or you have the title insurance on there? Is this another level of security?
Yeah. So basically, title insurance, if you look at your closing statement on any property you bought, you're going to probably have your title insurance policy, and it's probably a Alta owner's policy. And so there is a policy that does protect against fraud and impersonation after the policy date. And the policy date is when you buy the house. And that is the Alta homeowner's policy. It gets a little confusing, doesn't it? And as you might expect, the homeowner's policy is a lot more expensive. And title companies usually don't say like, oh, say, Jen, you've got your choice of insurance policies here. What would you like? Most people don't even understand what title insurance does in the first place,
right,
let alone like making choices on it. So they just slap the owner's policy on there and call it good. So then if something goes bad, like from the past, like a painter didn't get paid, title insurance will pay that guy off. And that's why we have title insurance, because, title company missed something. But if something happens after you bought the house, that's when the title insurance company says, ooh, yeah, here's the thing. Yeah, we don't cover that under your policy. So yeah, you're kind of out of luck here. That money that got stolen from you, it's not going to be us that pays it to you.
Oh my goodness. Well, this is incredible information. And it is mind-blowing for people who are working so hard to get into real estate investing and then to hear these crazy stories. So I am truly grateful for you coming on here and sharing it. And you heard me give a badassery bestowment at the beginning of the show, just a little tip for the listeners. Do you have a tip that you can share with our listeners?
Boy, avoid the ship sinking pitfalls. And the ship sinking pitfalls are not just the ones that I happen to be selling, like with squatters and title frauds. Another thing is people tripping and falling on your property getting sued for that, and then having that go above your coverage limits. And then there's also not hiring a licensed contractor, but hiring a contractor who is unlicensed and hurts himself, or in what happened to me, hurts himself. Oof. In air quotes right there for those who are listening on audio, on the property. So came back 9 months later after mowing the lawn, and he wasn't a licensed contractor. He was a technical, like, de facto employee. And I got shaken down for more money than I care to admit. And you can fight it. You can go up against them. But when you've got people that have nothing to lose, whether it's a squatter or a contractor, somebody pretending to be hurt, it can take you down. It can completely take you out of the game. So protect yourself against the ship sinkers. That's my bestowment of the day.
So listeners, make sure you check out the Squatter Defender and the Title Fraud Defender, and go to
TitleFraudDefender.com and use that promo code REIGN, REIGN, and get 20% off. And it's just a few bucks a month. I'm not sure if I mentioned the pricing yet, but there's other products in the market that do something very similar. But our software is really badass, and we do it extremely efficiently. So it ends up being just a few bucks a month rather than like 20 bucks a month for our competitor.
I love it, and I agree it is badass, and I'm going to have to check it out myself because, again, not if it happens, it's when it happens. So we're going to move to the second part of the podcast here, which is what makes George McCleary a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. What is a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
Boy, I'd have to say, just like so many other real estate investors, the one that really changed my life was Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Absolutely.
Thinking about assets and liabilities was just something that never occurred to me. I read it as I was exiting my first job out of college. I was in investment banking and really didn't like it, and decided to read some books about different types of things I could do with my life. I was in Australia surfing, reading about real estate, and I was thinking, gee, maybe this is what I should do. And it altered the course of my life.
It is such a great book. And I didn't read it for the longest time because everyone was talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm like, I don't have any kids. I thought it was a parenting book.
Oh.
So it took me a couple months to pick that up, but I did. So anyway, all right. The first A in badass is advice. You have given us great advice, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Well, today is the best day to buy real estate. The next best is, the first best day to buy real estate was 20 years ago. The next best day is today. Get in the game, get a house, rent it out to your friends, like just get in the game is my advice to everybody, because if it means having to live in a neighborhood you don't like, fine. If it means shacking up with 5 other people, fine. Especially if you're a young person and have the ability to do that. Man, I lived like an absolute pauper when I was first starting in real estate, and I had Craigslist roommates that did drugs off the coffee table and like messed the place up. And I was like, well, I guess this is what real estate is like. And that place that place made me a ton of money as a young guy in my early 20s. And I was like, okay, that was kind of hard. Those people were weird, but here I am with money for the first time in my life. Let's do this.
Very cool. Excellent, excellent advice. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives you to be successful?
Boy, I think about that a lot, actually, Jen, to be completely honest with you. And if I had to think of anything, I am like 5 feet, what's 5 feet in front of my face type of guy. So if you asked me that 10 years ago, I would have been, being the best version of myself. And now that I've got kids, it's, making a life for my kids. And then now that I've had kids for 10 years, it's, a combination of everything. So I think overall, being the best version of yourself is in service of not just having a successful career, but having successful kids and just making the most of our time on this planet. I actually just turned 45 a couple days ago, and people have pointed out I'm closer to 90 years old, my statistical death, than I am to my birth. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to be here forever. I need to make the most of this time. It's like a sale at Kmart. Time is running out. Make the most of your time, and I feel like that's what propels me forward.
I think that is fantastic. And happy birthday to you, George. Happy belated.
Thank you.
All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
I am always tracking my assets, liabilities, net worth, cash flow. I'm in a group called GoBundance, and we track this stuff and we share it with each other. And so we all set goals in terms of net worth, which I can't give you an exact number today, but I do give it to people that are very close to my inner circle. So when I give them a number of a certain quantity, they can identify with it. They're going to be okay with it, not think, oh, like, ooh, gee, must be nice. No, don't hang out with the that must be nice people. Get with people that are on your level, that are at the level above you, and make goals with them about those things, about your net worth, about how many assets you have versus liabilities. Make it a goal and make it a priority to increase your wealth and increase your assets, and have accountability on it with people that are like you.
I think accountability is so important. And a lot of times being a real estate investor can be super lonely. You come from a corporate America job where you have what we call water cooler talk. And now you are walking properties by yourself. You're doing all this. And even at the level you are, George, and the success that you have had, you still find the need to have that accountability. And I think that's a very important lesson for the listeners. So thank you for sharing that. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Don't be afraid to hire a VA.
Ugh.
That has been a massive hack for me. I've hired a bunch of them over the just the past few years.
Where do you get yours from?
Usually from the Philippines, from onlinejobs.ph is usually where I get them. And then so I get contract work from people on Fiverr, and they're usually foreign, but the ones that I actually have on staff, they're usually from the Philippines, and they're usually from that website, onlinejobs.ph. Again, no affiliation or anything. You do have to sort through. You got to kiss a few frogs, and that's totally normal. It's just like any country in the world where you've got your bad actors and your good actors, but they can be extremely good for an extremely economical price.
Yes.
The ones that I've kept around, they've started at like $5 an hour, and I'll raise them up to $6, $7, or $8 an hour, and they think I walk on water for paying them that amount, because that's just the going rate. So make a list of all the stuff that you don't have to be in town, like be in your house or your office to do. Hire a VA to do it. I've got them doing everything for me. And a system of checks and balances. I got accountants watching accountants. I think Biggie Smalls said that, but yeah. And it's all people that are that I don't have to pay a ton of money, but I get a ton of value from.
I had a mentor one time make me do this exercise where for 2 weeks, every 15 minutes on my calendar, I had to say what I did during those 15 minutes, including, watching viral videos about a guy who stole a house, whatever it is, everything.
Cat videos again, Jen?
I'm about puppies.
Puppies, yes.
And I have cats too. I don't discriminate. But how you spend your time, and then you go through and you break things out to what's making you money, what's not making you money. And those things, that's how you can determine what to pass off to a virtual assistant. And I think that is excellent advice, because we've had them. We currently don't have one. I miss them desperately, but that is a great system to have in place. All right, to wrap this podcast up, and I'm super sad because I feel like I could talk to you another 2 hours, because like more and more things are coming through my head where I'm like, ooh, I should have asked him about that. But this is fantastic, and
I'll just have to come back on the show, Jen.
Please
I'll totally do that.
Let's definitely do that, because this has been great. So the final S is success. What does success mean to George McCleary?
Boy, you're asking the tough questions today, Jen. I love it. I love it. Making me think over here. Success is is expectations minus reality, or a lot of times they say happiness is expectations minus reality. And I've struggled with that a lot of times because, I set goals and expectations that are up here and, I'll fall short of them. And I think like, that's, that I guess that's okay, but I didn't really like achieve my goal. What you can do in that to really help your mindset to keep positive and keep moving forward is to measure backwards. There's a book about it. It's called The Gap and the Gain. Ooh. If you're living, yes, a great book if you've never read that. But in The Gap of the Gain,
Who Not How too. Sorry.
Who Not How. Yes. Yeah. I think
same
the same
author.
guy, maybe. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Same guy. If you're measuring backwards, so I think, how much have I progressed since I first bought that duplex when I was, 23 years old? Have I learned anything since then? Oh man, I've learned absolutely just reams of information, and I'm so much better now than I was back then. I'm better than I was 2 years ago, and so are you, and so are your listeners.
Yes.
And you have to adopt that mindset of both a growth mindset to, keep moving forward with accountability, with goals and everything, but still you are successful if you've made forward progress, and forward progress takes on different forms. But be accountable, but don't be too hard on yourself. If you don't own any real estate yet, that's totally okay. Most people don't, and most people don't own an investment property anyway. And I'd say that's the best thing you can do is just keep a positive mindset, and that's what success means to me. It's forward progress.
So well said. And it has been amazing to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your insight. And you also had a book released in July. Is that true?
I should change that in my book. It actually hasn't come out yet, but maybe by the time this episode airs, it will. But so the book is called I Stole a House, and it's real estate pitfalls that every real estate investor needs to know about. I'm working on the very last story on it, but it's a collection of stories that I heard when I was talking to all these, many dozens of people nationwide about squatters, title fraud, basically ways that they've been scammed in real estate. Mm-hmm. And the way to not get scammed in real estate or otherwise is to know what the scam is and to know how to avoid it and what to do about it. And that's what this book is. And I wrote it in like a very entertaining format, or I had a professional writer take my okay writing and make it really good so that it was easy to read and entertaining. And so that you can read about these things and think like, okay, whoa. I don't want this to happen to me. They're all real. These things all happened, and there are people that have lost like hundreds of thousands of dollars or more in real estate. So yeah, once that comes out, I encourage you to go take a look at that.
And we'll find it on Amazon.
Yes, that's the plan. Okay. I don't have it there yet, but I actually really appreciate, again, with the accountability. We were just talking about accountability. Yes, I thought I was going to release it in July, and here I am, going live on a podcast saying I don't have it done yet. And I really do need to do that. So thank you, Jen. I appreciate that.
I did not mean to put you on the spot, but I was super excited to see that you had a book coming out. So I definitely want to give a shout out to that, because having those real life stories is really what's going to scare it out of you, is what I'm going to say. And I think it's, anyway, everything that you do and that you provide is so important. And again, you can use REIGN, REIGN, as a code to get 25% off. And you want to visit titlefrauddefender.com or squatterdefender.com and check him out today. George, and absolutely, you all need to watch that video, because it is just going to anger you, and it is so true, because it literally step by step happened to my dear friend Stephanie. So check it out today. So George, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Jen. This has been pure badassery.
I love it. Well, that is all. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Now, go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to REIGN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of REIGN by registering on reignmastermind.com.